Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to make a paper crossbow, and this video is also going to cover how a prisoner would make crossbows. Now a lot of these materials are available outside of prison and inside of prison, but some of these materials, because a lot of prisoners, they won't have access to all of this stuff, so every material I'm going to give you two parts to it to sort of show you what we're going to use and what a prisoner would use, and they would use what they have access to. So first of all, the first part you'll need is newspapers. What I have here is from here to here I have 8 rolls of newspaper, and these are just rolled up tightly, and each of these rolls have 5 layers of newspaper in them. And also what I did to just put them together is tape them. And obviously in some prisons they would have tape, and some prisons they won't. So what a prisoner would use for his to put these newspapers together instead of using tape is they would make homemade glue. Now a lot of people don't know what I meant by homemade glue, because I mentioned homemade glue in my How Prisoners Make Shanks video. A lot of people were wondering what I meant by homemade glue, and homemade glue is just what they would do to make homemade glue is just take flour and water and mix it together, and that's what they would use as their glue. The next thing I have here is just the same thing, but this is less than half the size of these newspapers, and it's just flyer paper. The same thing, it's 5 rolls, it's 5 layers of newspaper, but it's just the flyer paper. It's half the size, less than half the size. The next thing we have is our power source. Now again, this is something that there's 2 parts to it. There's what a prisoner would use, and this is what we would use, what we're going to use. And for the power source, it's what a prisoner would use is their underwear elastic. They would just rip it out of their underwear, and they would use that as their band or their power source. What we're going to use is rubber bands. But yeah, that's what a prisoner would use, just underwear elastic. And what we got here is a clothespin. This is going to be our trigger. Now prisoners, they wouldn't have a clothespin, so what they would do is they're actually smart enough to use their dinner trays and cut them to make a trigger. But we're going to keep it simple, we're just going to use our clothespin. And next thing we got is our arrow. Now this thing right here, this is what we're going to use. This right here is what a prisoner would use to make their arrows. For obviously this would make a good arrow. It's just a sharpened pencil. They would easily get that from their art room. And this plastic cutlery, like a plastic knife or a plastic fork, what they would do with these is they would melt down the tip. They would melt down the tip and use that as their arrow. And I already explained how to make a tip out of plastic spoons and plastic cutlery in my How Prisoners Make Shanks video. They would just melt it down, but I don't think I'll have to go through all that again. You can just check out my How Prisoners Make Shanks video. That'll explain everything all about the forming the tip and how they would what they would use as their heat source and all that. And to use these as our bolt, they're not going to work just like that. We're going to have to add paper to it. We got some scissors, we got tape over there, and we got some paper. And again, the tape, they're not going to have tape in prison. What they would use is like I told you, the homemade glue. It's flour and water mixed together. Okay, so that's it for the materials. Let's start the building now. Okay guys, so we got our 8 rolls over here. We got 2 rolls, another 2 rolls, 3 rolls, and just 1 roll. What we're going to do now is build the body of the crossbow. So the first thing you got to do is just see exactly how I put them. You got to tape these together. So tape these 2 together, tape these 2 together, tape these 3 together, and just leave this one how it is. Okay, so I'm just going to do that and get back to the video. Okay guys, so I'm done taping the 2 rolls, the 3 rolls, and the other 2 rolls. I'm done taping them together, so the next thing we gotta do is put all the pieces together. So first we're gonna take our 2 rolls, put this right at the top, and make sure it's balanced. Right now it's not. It's gotta be even. Okay, there. It's perfectly balanced on both sides now. And another thing is, once you grab it, once you put it up here, you gotta make sure it's right at the edge where the roll stops, right there. It can't be up here, can't be too high, and it can't be too low. It's gotta be right over there, like that. Okay, so just balance this out again, and yeah, like that. Next thing you gotta do is take your other 2 rolls, put them over here. These 2 have to touch, the top 2 rolls and these 2 rolls, you gotta touch. Put them like that. Just show you how everything looks now. That's the base of it. This is the base of the paper crossbow. Still got a lot more to do. This part you can probably cut off. Right there, just the extra part that you don't need. Okay, but so far this is the base. I'll show you it from this side as well. It's balanced. Okay, now we're gonna go to the next step. Okay guys, so the next thing we gotta do is tape all of this together. I just took this off. This was right here, as you saw before. This was right here. I took this off because the first thing we got to do is tape these 2 to the bottom part, to the 3 rolls. How we're going to do that is, show you, just put some here. That's how I just started off, and just make sure you secure it and tape it all around. You don't need too much tape. You guys are probably wondering that it's a little bit of tape, it's not going to hold it back, but this is what we're actually going to use to hold it back, to use it to stop it from being pushed back when we're pulling back the rubber bands. We're going to tape a bit more though. Taping it around over here and at the back part too. Flip this over. Tape this as well. Okay, put it back to how it was. Now the next thing we gotta do is take our 2 rolls, put them right over here, and now just tape these 2 rolls to the bottom 3 rolls. Okay, see what I just did there? We're just going to keep on doing that from top to bottom. I'll do that and I'll get back to the video. Okay, so I'm done taping the top 2 to the bottom 3. I got about, from top to bottom, I taped it about 6 or 7 times. Okay guys, now that the whole crossbow is taped up, we're going to make the support structure for it. So how we're going to do that is we're going to take our last roll of newspaper and we're going to cut it right in half. Should be able to see the half. For me it's right over here. So I'm going to cut it. Okay, that's cut. This is what we're going to use to support the sides of the crossbow. So then when we pull back the rubber bands, the top part doesn't break. Okay, now that I've got my two smaller rolls, I'm going to tape them to each side in the same way that I have it laid out over here. So what you have to do is just put that right here and tape both sides. The top side, it's like that. Try to do it as much as possible just because you don't want this part breaking. It has to be tough, but you won't have to tape too much. Should be probably about, I would say 5 or 6 pieces of tape on each side. That should be enough. Okay, so you basically get the idea. I'll do the other side and I'll get back to the video. Okay, so both sides have been taped, both support structures. And so what someone would do in prison, since they probably wouldn't have tape, they would use something to put a hole through this top side over here and this side, and in the bow on this side and on this side as well. And they would basically take their support structures, stick them in, and glue around it, or use some sort of paper mache. And same with this side. That's what they would do. Okay, now that that part's done, we're gonna get our rubber bands, our power source. Okay, so we got our rubber bands here, and as I mentioned earlier in the video at the beginning, that a prisoner would use their underwear elastic instead of rubber bands, but for us it's much more simple to use our rubber bands. So what you do with these is, I got a big one and 2 small ones which are the same size. I'm gonna take it and just tie it to one side, pull it through, pull that, and then same for this side, stretch it out, pull this through, tie it. Okay, we got our rubber band and we're going to attach it to that now. Attaching the bands to the crossbow is really simple. The support structures are going to help us out. They do 2 things. First of all, they're going to do this, which is, I'll show you. They're going to hold our bands, just put them around, and this stops it from going anywhere or getting pulled back and hitting us. These support structures, it stops it from going in, stops it from coming out. And basically this is how it's going to be. Now we're just going to make our trigger mechanism. Okay, now this is what I'm going to use for my trigger mechanism. It's a clothespin. But if a prisoner had to do it, he probably would have just, what they would do is just simply use that as it is. But some prisoners, what they have been able to do is using a dinner tray and cutting it into different pieces, they were able to make some sort of trigger and place it here. But right now I'm going to show you how to use the clothespin as your trigger. So what you do is you take your rubber bands, you pull them back as far as they can go. Can you see where that is? Let's see if the camera can see it. Yep. Okay, so wherever it stops, you take your pen, mark it there, And now that's where this spot's gonna go. See this hole right there? Right there? That's where it's gonna be aligned with the line. Put that right here. We're gonna open it up like this and tape it from the inside. Just get a close up. Okay, so there it is. That circle, the hole right there, it is aligned with this, as you can see, with the line that I made. Both are aligned, so I'm going to open it up and tape it right at that same spot where the line is. Where the line and the hole get aligned, that's where I'm going to put tape. Okay, so I got my pin, got my tape. I'm going to put that right there. Put that around and just place it on top of the crossbow. Make sure everything's aligned like it was, like I showed you just a few seconds ago, and just tape that. And then we're just going to put a lot more tape at the same spot. I'll do a close-up of that too. Now I'm going to take about 10 pieces of tape and put it at that same spot where the last one was. See if I can get this in there. There. Adjust it if you have to. Then when you put about the 10 pieces of tape, it'll stop moving. That. We need a lot of tape if we're gonna hold down the clothespin from flying off because of the pull strength of the rubber bands. Now tape off the sides, the side tapes, so it doesn't move. Okay, put about 4 on each side. And it's ready. Trigger's ready. Now that the trigger and the bands are ready, let me just show you that the trigger actually works. Open this up, pull this down, so we'll get held by the clothespin, and to fire, just press this and it would fire. Okay, we got one more thing to do. Okay, so the next thing I got here is the flyer paper I showed you at the beginning of the video. What this is going to be used as is sort of like a as a barrel or a guide for the arrows, or else if you don't have one of these, it's the arrow is just going to fly left or right and you won't have any real it won't fly straight. So what we do is take one of these, cut them in half. There. Okay, let's cut in half. And take our crossbow. We're going to place this. This piece is going to go right there. You might leave a little bit up at the top. Be right there. Okay, now that you've cut it in half, take it, and the rubber band is going to mark where it stays, and basically it's got to be the rubber wherever the rubber band is aligned. It's got to be about halfway, halfway across the piece. which is about right here, and this is where we're going to tape it down. So take that. It's got to be at about the middle. Same thing like before, just keep taping it down. Doesn't matter if it's pressed down a little bit. It's better that way, it'll keep it tight, stop it from flying off. Now that that's done, just tape 4 or 5 pieces across to hold on the tape on each side. 5 on each side. And I'll do the same thing to the other and get back to the video. Now your barrel or your guide for your crossbow is ready. We're going to work on the bolts now. Okay, now we're going to make the bolt. I'm using the bamboo skewer method, but if you want to use a plastic spoon as your tip, the same way as a prisoner would, you basically do what I'm doing here with the paper, but you go and watch the How Prisoners Make Shanks video and follow the steps on making the actual shank. It'll be pretty much the same way that you work on the tip of the bolt. But for now, let me just teach you this method. Take this. Goes right on the edge and you roll it. Doesn't have to be perfect, but just try to make it as tight as possible. It might slide out, that's not a problem. We're just going to tape the bottom to block it. But first, for the bolt, this is important. Take this side and tape it off. Now, so that the bolt doesn't go up from the bottom, tape a little bit at the bottom. And then block off the hole. And take some tape to make this side a bit thicker so that the rubber band can easily shoot this. If it's too thin, then the rubber bands won't be able to, it'll just slip out. Should come out a little bit, just so you could get some penetration. But that much should be okay. Depending on how strong your bands are, Just depends how much penetration you're gonna get, but I think we'll get about this much. That should be okay. Tape it a few more times just so you can make sure it doesn't come out. So the tape is running from the paper and onto the crossbow as well. I mean on the bolt as well. Now the rest just tape a few pieces on the body, because these few of these flaps are coming out. Okay, our bolt's done. Okay, now that everything's complete, let me show you how it shoots. Just take this, pull it back, got your crossbow bolt, align it if you have to, and just press the button. That's all. Okay guys, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching.